Be better.
Morning, sir. Thank you. Be better.
Be better.
Hi and welcome to Better Days News. I'm Rob Blackman. Today is September 11th, 2011. It was 10 years ago today that an all-out assault was launched on the United States of America. 2 planes were flown into the World Trade Center in New York, a plane hit the Pentagon, and another plane crashed in Pennsylvania. It's a day that millions of Americans will never forget, and today all over Shreveport-Bossier, people are taking time out to remember those who perished on that fateful day a decade ago.
Where were you when the world stopped turning that September day?
Dozens of people visited the Liberty Garden in Bossier City to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks. Nearly 3,000 people perished when hijacked airplanes hit the Twin Towers in New York and the Pentagon. A 4th plane crashed in a Pennsylvania field.
Did you stand there in shock at the sight of the black smoke rising against that blue sky? Did you shout out in anger and fear for your neighbor, or did you just sit down and cry?
Colonel Janet Deltuva was stationed at the Pentagon on that dreadful September morning. Colonel Deltuva said 4 words best describe what she and others experienced: freedom, bravery, sacrifice, and gratitude.
Freedom. We may not appreciate our freedom on a day-to-day basis, but you only need to live for one moment without freedom to appreciate how truly valuable it is. Bravery. I will never forget when Lieutenant General Carlton came upon our medical efforts in the courtyard on September 11th. General Carlton was the Air Force Surgeon General at that time. He walked into the crowd of first responders and patients and said very calmly, "I'm P.K. Carlton, trauma surgeon. How can I help?" A nurse began to brief him on our efforts when the general noticed a distressed soldier exiting the building. General Carlton broke away from the medical brief and grabbed the young man at the shoulders and said, "What is it?" The soldier could barely speak. Sacrifice. Much later in the evening, I heard the fire chief say, "It's another Oklahoma City." He was referring to the fact that at this point in the night, few survivors were expected. We would find out later that there were not many live casualties beyond the initial wave we had already encountered. Earlier in the day, I was able to reach my husband on my mobile phone. It was almost 2 hours before he was able to hear from me. He could barely get the words out. You have no idea what happened in New York City. Both Twin Towers collapsed and over 200 firefighters were killed. So now, in the twilight of the day, as I was handing out water to the rescue workers and firefighters, the fire chief started telling me how they went about fighting a fire from the roof. He was explaining all the details of firefighting and the rehab cycles to receive oxygen and rest during a really tough call. I mentioned to him what Rick had told me, that the trade towers collapsed. I asked him if he had heard that more than 200 firefighters were missing. His knees buckled as he gasped and slumped backwards to support himself against a vehicle. "Don't tell these guys," he said. "They can't know that. They need to be focused." And I didn't say a word. Gratitude. My New Year's resolution in January 2001, just 9 months before the terrorist attacks, was to read the Bible cover to cover on my daily Metro train commute. I didn't have a set number of pages or a plan. I simply sat down and read it each day on the Metro train. I completed reading the Bible just 6 months later in June 2001. My coworkers were always talking about what they were reading on their commutes, and they would tease me about reading the Bible. They said, "Oh, Janet, you're just studying for the final exam." But on September 11th, I thought the final exam was in front of me. As I crouched and I prayed, frightened by an unknown aircraft, I remember feeling an incredible calm, so grateful that I had a relationship with God. Grateful that all was well with my family and friends, and that if the absolute worst came to pass, I was at peace with the most important people in my life, and that there would be no regrets. It is my personal belief that God's plans are perfect. I am grateful that He nudged me to complete the Bible and to repurpose my life. I am grateful that He guided me to thriving relationships with the most important people in my life. And I am grateful that He spared my life.
Like millions of Americans, I remember exactly what I was doing on September 11th, 2001. I was actually at my friend's insurance office in Bossier City. She told me to turn on the television, and what I saw, I'll never forget. And it's something I hope you never forget as well. A couple of months ago, a very small group of people in Shreveport-Bossier came together to form what we call Better Days News. It's a very unique concept that has a very simple message: to tell positive stories. Well, we wanted you to know exactly how Better Days News came to be. Our Amber Honnell recently sat down with Chris Dennis to find out how she turned a personal tragedy into triumph.
You are definitely one of the inspirations for Better Days News. I mean, we wouldn't have the concept or anything without you. And I remember the phone call that I got that said, "Hey, you need to talk to my mom." And so tell me a little bit about how you guys even came up with the idea.
My mom was praying one day, and God spoke to her in a prayer, and he had said, hey, look, I wanted you to do something that's inspirational, to reach out to other people. And my mom obviously knows more details than I do because it was her prayer and this is her thing. But from the way I understand it, that's how it happened. It was a God download, and so.
So he finally got it, and he was happy about it.
Yeah, extremely happy, and just to the moon and back happy, and it was. Our family was complete. It was, we got a little bun in the oven. We're, getting ready. We're going to be parents. We're going to be responsible, and it's going to be good because finally, like. All of these miracles that God had put into place, buying the house, getting out of debt, just doing all that stuff, and then it's all there. And then whenever I was 3 months pregnant, Jeff passed, and I think that doing this alone and learning to trust God. I mean, there were times, I remember after Parker was first born and holding a newborn in your arms, and I mean, they're so fragile, and they only know you, and that's all they want is you. And I just remember just holding him into my arms, and we'd be rocking, and I just remember just looking at him and just weeping. And it would be nighttime, and I would ask God, why me? Why our family? Why didn't you take some drug dealer off the street? Why didn't you take, some murderer? Why was it me, and why was it my family? Why did this happen? And I have to realize that, his ways aren't my ways. And that, a finite mind cannot understand an infinite mind. And so there's no way that I can possibly understand it. I know that another thing that gives me comfort is I know that no matter even on my best day, if I'm 110%, I'm running on all 8 cylinders, God can look after Jeff a lot better than I can, even on my best day. And, even whenever God's got the whole other world to take care of, Jeff's cool. He's good. I don't have to worry about Jeff anymore. I know he's okay.
You can see Amber's full interview with Chris on our YouTube channel. Just search Better Days News. And that's it for this edition of Better Days News. I'm Rob Blackman. Thanks for watching.